I was one of those preemie parents, the ones who can't stop asking, when will my preemie catch up to his peers? Will he ever follow the same growth trajectory as other kids? Because every child is different, we can never truly know how their development will unfold. That is exactly why doctors tend to avoid giving us definitive forecast. I remember hearing he'll catch up eventually from doctors and nurses. And I was wondering what catch up really meant and what exactly eventually was supposed to be. Through my research, I learned that catching up simply means the gap between the actual birth date and the expected due date eventually become too small to notice. Because of this physical development gap in early years, doctors use corrected age to track development accurately. It's the chronological age minus how early the baby was born. For example, my child is physically 4 months younger than his birth age until the 4 month development gap is not significant enough. If you think about a 5 month old baby and 9 month old baby, they're completely two different things. But a 44-month-old child and a 48-month-old child are not that different. For this reason, I'll be using my child's corrected age in this video when talking about his milestones. Of course, the earlier a child is born, the longer the catch-up process takes, and the higher the chance of delay somewhere in the development. Some have lasting impacts, many don't. Even in similar cases, no two babies hit their milestones the same way. No one can give us 100% clarity. Overall, we follow the WHO guidelines and general recommendations based on research, which doctors gently encourage. That includes three key things: breastfeeding for a minimum of 6 months or 2 years if possible, no screen time in early years, and one parent staying home with the child for the first 3 years. Of course, doctors do not judge if parents don't get to follow those guidelines because of various reasons, but when all the many doctors we saw throughout the post NICU years heard that we are following those guidelines, every single one of them was overjoyed. I breastfed for over 2 years. There's no screen time still at the age of 3 except for video calls with grandparents, and I'm staying at home with him until he starts daycare this year. The health checklist has been very positive. Regarding eyes and hearing, retinopathy is a very common worry for preemies, but the treatment is usually very simple eye drops handled during the hospital stay. We had a couple of follow ups after leaving the hospital, and eyes and hearings were all working just fine. And regarding teeth and eating, he got his teeth early, a full set by 18 months. He loves healthy food and is always interested in trying new ingredients. And regarding growth, for the most of these 3 years, he was smaller and lighter, around the 20th percentile for length and 10th for weight. But within just the last few months, he had a massive surge. He's now at the 60th percentile for length and 30th for weight. I tried following all the helpful general advice: daily socialization, groups and activities, the whole thing. We did two baby groups plus a playtime at the family center every week. On top of that, in the summer, we were at the playgrounds and park 3 to 5 times a day. And in winter, the library and kids friendly indoor spaces were destinations. And in spring and autumn, at least 1 or 2 times of playground visits mixed with some other destinations. We also took a baby swim course when he was around 1, which he really hated and learned how to deal with it towards the end. Looking back, I tried a little too much. I could tell my baby wasn't always enjoying overstimulation. I mean, he was a sensitive baby, but I listened to the experts instead of my own baby or my own gut. I started asking back to people who say, oh, babies have to see other babies every day, what that really means. And you know what? All of them eventually say, well, maybe like being in the same space with other children, like once or twice a week, is enough. It drove me crazy. Then just say that so you don't add more pressure to moms who are already trying so hard. Also, I've been making personal observations on baby socialization for this last 3 years, every day on the playground and public spaces, and I would love to share the reality of it in another episode. The upside, though, we did find a few very friendly families in the neighborhood that we really, really like and get along well. This is where we had to be incredibly patient. He tried rolling over around 4 months old, but then he completely stopped. Tummy time was a disaster every time. He skipped crawling entirely. He didn't scoot and he didn't sit himself up until around 20 months old. This chain of delays, of course, led to a huge walking delay. At age 2, he was able to walk with support, but alone, that was a challenge. Our pediatrician initially didn't support physiotherapy. She would say he'll do when he's ready. He doesn't have any brain issue, so don't force it. But as a worried mom, I insisted and went on with physiotherapy. Our first trial was when he was around 6 months old, and it was a complete failure. And eventually, the therapist gave up. And the second trial was when he was around 18 months old. It was with a new therapist recommended by the neighbor family. And it was done over the course of about 4 to 5 months when it was cold during the winter, once or twice a week. He still was not ready. And even the calm and super patient therapist seemed a little frustrated towards the end because there was really not much progress that she wanted to achieve. However, he did learn how to sit himself up during this time, and he really liked her and enjoyed time with her. So that itself was a big win. And the third trial is going on right now. We started when he was around 2.5 years old. We're back with the same therapist, and he's finally enjoying the time. He's mastering his walk and using the muscles that he didn't get to practice by skipping all those milestones. And it's also a really great winter play session for him. And he's still a little wobbly, but it seems like everything finally clicked. Around when my child was 19 months old, we went through a serious medical emergency involving anemia. It had developed gradually, so we knew he had low energy and was pale, wondering if it was just a winter thing. But we didn't know how bad it was until he fell sick. On the day we visited our pediatrician, she arranged a hospital stay and sent an ambulance to our home that evening. We were hospitalized while my husband was away on a work trip and he had to rush home the next day. My child's red blood cell count was so low, the doctors were shocked that he wasn't already in a coma. We spent 4 days in the NICU at the birth hospital for infusions and blood transfusions. Yes, we were back there for an emergency situation again, 2 years after the dramatic birth. It was a surreal reunion with the same nurses and doctors and all the rooms with the incubators. All of them still remembered us as that baby and that mom from that crazy birth situation. Also, nurses seem to enjoy the company of a huge 18-month-old who can kind of communicate staying there among the tiny babies in the incubator. Thankfully, he recovered fully, and follow ups have confirmed that his red blood cell counts are very strong now. Some of the nurses and therapists said mobility delayed kids often compensate that with something else. cognitive ability. Well, now I'm going to talk about it. This is a chance for me to brag about my child, so I'm just gonna do it. Regarding spatial memory, since around when he was 10 months old, he understood the map of our neighborhood within the 30-minute walk radius. So he knew exactly what was where and where to turn and all. And it was super impressive, especially at such early age. And regarding memory, by 18 months, he became our literal to-do list reminder. So he would remind me what I told him what we were going to do or what we were going to buy at the grocery store. If I forget or miss something to do or buy, then he would actually tell me what is missing, which was crazy. And at around 2, I realized that he memorizes his books, many of his books, cover to cover. I once choked while I was reading a book to him, so I stopped. Then he would just continue by reciting the rest of the book from the memory. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I started trying with other books, and then he knew them all. Of course, I was screaming with joy inside, and I was so proud. And regarding language, he understands all three languages we speak at home: English, German, and Korean, at a perfectly same level, even though he doesn't speak all the languages at the same level yet. And he assembles beautiful poetic sentences in German, which is his first language, from various books and sources, and he speaks very beautifully. So I'm so proud of him. Yes, I am a proud mom, and I admit that I had many, maybe my child is gifted moments. Beyond the milestones and the metrics, here is where he is now. He is a happy, healthy toddler who is simply navigating this world at his own pace. He speaks in beautiful sentences. He is fascinated by how his body works, and luckily for us, he sleeps and eats really well. He loves helping with house chores, and his favorite thing is swiffering the floor with his wobbly walks. He's also developing a little sense of humor, so I get to witness another layer of his personality coming out. And because he is so eloquent and can communicate what he needs, we rarely experience tantrums. How he talks melts my heart every day. He tells us he likes living with us, and every night before bed, he says, "It was a beautiful day." I take his words at face value and assume he's doing great. So that is our 3 year update. Of course, this is just one example among the millions of preemie stories out there, but I hope it gives you an assuring glimpse into years ahead, especially if you're a preemie parent in early part of the journey. I want to tell you what our pediatrician told me so many times. For the context, she has over 40 years of experience and has treated tens of thousands of children, if not more. She always said, as long as there's no brain issue, your baby will develop in its own time. Don't compare and don't force it. In case of extreme prematurity, it is completely normal for a child to need a few more years to fully catch up. So please try not to worry too much. I know it's not always easy. Your plate might be fuller with treatments and follow ups. And it's easy to fall into the trap of worrying ahead of time. But I truly believe that there is more texture in our stories and more depth in our memories because of what we have been through. And little by little, you will see your child growing in ways that charts cannot fully measure. Thank you for being here and listening to our story. This is Never Too Early. I'll see you in the next one.